Welcome to the Daily Exchange. I'm here talking about Bitcoin. It is the 10th birthday. We have Halsey from VideoCoin joining us and some really interesting trainings happening out in the market. We'll see you guys right after this. All right, guys, we're back. Bitcoin, guys, trading right now at around $6,298. We did have a bit of a sell-off yesterday. It's kind of stabilized a little bit of a green candle. Some analysts are suggesting right now that Bitcoin could be around the support level around 6,100 mark. Ethereum was trading at $196. Bitcoin Cash at $421. Litecoin at $49, just under $50. And EOS at $5.50. Some interesting potential news is that Bakkt could be launching, the JP Morgan exchange could be, JP Morgan's preparing reports that Bakkt could be coming in around December 12th. December 12th now, which could be very interesting. Some interesting bullish video come out right now from Ripple. They have been talking up how long it takes to send money overseas. They've put this little video together and they've suggested that it takes longer, or I guess it's shorter in time to get on an airplane and fly to another country and give the money to the other person than it does for a bank to actually transfer the money. That's some pretty aggressive words, I guess, from the Ripple team. But yeah, there you have it. They're really coming out strong. Moving on. We've got a special guest, guys, today, and it is an absolute honor. And I want to welcome Halsey Minor from CEO of Live Planet and lead for the VideoCoin network. Halsey, welcome to the Daily Exchange.
Thank you for having me.
Just a bit of background, and I just want to give everyone a bit of context here. I am in awe of Halsey. He has founded many very successful organizations, including CNET and Salesforce, two massive organizations, a real entrepreneur, pioneer, and amazing founder. And now very much leading the charge for VideoCoin. Obviously, it seems like a natural progression for you with Live Planet, which has been delivering high quality VR and 360-degree video content. Tell us, Halsey, how would you describe VideoCoin and how did it come about to being a thing?
What the hell? Hold on.
We've got some tunes coming in. I think we lost Halsey there, but he's coming back.
Somehow or other, you must have been whispering to Siri because you definitely set her off.
I set off Siri. Siri's no. Is Siri my friend?
I'm not sure what you said.
I liked your tunes. Let's start again, Halsey. Tell us about VideoCoin and how it came about.
Yeah, so VideoCoin, it's pretty straightforward what it does. It's a competitor to Amazon Web Services. Amazon Web Services does a couple of things. They allow people to run applications in the cloud, but a huge part of their business is helping media companies, including companies like Netflix, process all of the video. And when I mean process, video has to be in a special form for every phone, tablet, and computer, and at all different bandwidths, and that's called encoding. And then, of course, it all needs to be stored and it needs to be streamed. And so it's these three things that sort of represent what Amazon Web Services does in video. And it's become a gigantic business because video is now 80% of the internet and growing at 25% a year. And, just about everyone's become a cord cutter. So we don't get our video over satellite or over our cable network. Now we get it directly to our device, and that's created a huge cost for media companies. And I can say that probably the most disconcerting part about these media companies needing and using Amazon is their biggest competitor. So you've got an environment where media companies are getting, their costs are skyrocketing. They haven't figured out how to monetize the video online yet. And they're paying their biggest and most ruthless competitor. And so it's created a huge opportunity if you can figure out how to do the same thing. I mean, I would argue we could do the same thing at the same price and they would still use us, but particularly if you can do the same thing and do it for a dramatically lower cost, which is in fact what we do.
Fantastic. And I guess, what kind of services do you expect to sign up for VideoCoin? Sort of Netflix size providers or smaller scale operations? Who's sort of the customer?
Yeah, so I mean, the companies that we worked with for ICO is 20th Century Fox, Paramount, DirecTV. I mean, I think they're fairly, I think they're good examples of the kind of companies that are experiencing, an enormous amount of increased expense because of the transition that's going on in video. Using Amazon, would prefer not to. There are some people who stream more, like Netflix. I mean, ironically, Amazon's video service is a direct competitor to Netflix, but Netflix uses Amazon, just to kind of to give you the dynamic of the that's going on. Now, I would tell you that I'm sure Netflix is getting Amazon's absolutely best price, obviously, because of the size of the relationship. And people are getting different prices depending upon, obviously how much they put through. But I mean, I think it really, when you're reducing the cost of video, look, we're going to 4K and 8K and VR, and these are just massive amounts of video, and the cost goes up with all of these. So I think really, as it's 2.1 billion people now using video. 80% of the internet, it'll be 90% of the internet. Video will probably be 95% of the internet, in 10 years. And so I think anyone who's using the internet for video was going to want to reduce their costs, just because why wouldn't you? And so we have a separate architectural model using the blockchain that allows us to both lower costs and increase innovation. And
so how does VideoCoin work? Can you sort of give us an explanation of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually really not that complicated. It's actually complicated to build, but it's not really complicated to understand. But let me step back and say my CTO actually built a video streaming cloud. So he built an Amazon competitor at Intel. And Intel decided, because they sell a lot of chips to Amazon, that they did not want to compete with their customers. So after he built it, managed the data center, it was sold to Facebook. And if everybody remembers one day when video showed up in Facebook, it's because they bought the infrastructure that Deva built. So we have experience actually building one of these clouds. It's not a theoretical thing for us. We know what they look like. We know what they're supposed to do. We know the performance that they need to achieve. But what we realized, kind of pooling my experience in crypto and his deep experience in video, is that we can use the blockchain to make an architectural decision in the way technology, particularly the cloud, operates. So, people talk about decentralization, and they mean all kinds of things, from a moral concept to decentralization. Ours is just really about being able to tap the lowest cost resources that exist in the world, and they are decentralized, right? So while Amazon pushes everything in one data center, we have the ability to use resources that are in data centers all across the world, where they're either not being used, and that's about $20 billion of server value that's sitting idle. But I think even longer term, you're looking at things like these video miners operating in areas where the cost of power is lower, right? So that's not the way Amazon's set up. Amazon's not, they had put their data centers where the cost of power is lower. But I think what we're really doing is a proven model that Bitcoin and many other currencies have proven, which is if you give people the ability to run software on their computer, pay them for it, they'll go buy more computers and they'll do more of the same. And I think this is a new thing. This is a revolutionary kind of concept. And we just tap into that concept. We tap into that idea that I'll run hardware for somebody for some purpose. I'll get paid for it. It squares well with what's going else in the world, where services like Airbnb and Uber have created a model for sharing. I mean, I would argue that it's easier to share your computer than it is to share your car or your home. I mean, you have people dynamics in both of those businesses. I mean, if you came to me and said, do you think Uber, Airbnb, or VideoCoin is most likely to work? I pick VideoCoin, because I'm like, who's going to want to let people live in their house or drive in their car? But I mean, we know the model works, right? And incredibly well.
Totally. Do you think you could make VideoCoin without the blockchain? So obviously people are going to, share their computers to process this video. Do you think you'd need the blockchain, or how is that used?
Yeah, so the blockchain is absolutely essential to what we do. So really three things that need to happen, right? The first is we need to continually test that you can do what you say you can do. So we're inspecting the hardware. Can you really encode? Can you really store? Can you really stream? So we need software that does that. That's got to run, and that's got to run, on top of the computers that we expect to use. We need to meter what you do, because we got to figure out how we're going to pay you. And I think the real, one of the most, I guess, underappreciated things almost about crypto and Bitcoin is this idea that I don't have to try to figure out how to pay you through the banking system for running a server, in China or in Australia or in Belarus. I mean, that the whole payment thing kind of goes away, because people take a currency, take it back to an exchange, and get it back into their own, and get it back into their own currency. I mean, the thing that you led off with, right, which is true, because I've been involved in building a financial services firm in the crypto domain. I mean, it really does take. I mean, there are places like Argentina you could fly down there and fly back 5 times before money arrives, right? So having the ability to have one universal currency that you pay everybody, where they can go to an exchange, versus trying to pay through Bank of America, all these countries, So crypto solves a massive payment problem. And then I would say that the fourth thing really is that the way we set ours up is that servers are competing for capacity. So, we're sort of the ultimate commoditization of hardware. So just as you would expect prices to fluctuate for soybeans and oil and natural gas and, cotton and everything you think of, you should expect that the same thing is going to happen. And so when sort of prices go up, more capacity will come online, and when prices go down, capacity will go off, and it'll operate really like any commoditized market.
Understand. Wonderful. And I guess are people going to be able to build dApps on top of VideoCoin? Is it its own blockchain?
Yeah. So you know, it's interesting, and there's a parallel. So when we were launching Salesforce.com, and I'd go and speak to customers or on panels, and I'd say, you know, you're all going to buy it because it's cheaper, but longer term, you're going to be keeping it because it's more innovative, right? So before, if you had to buy software to manage your Salesforce, you know, that software, you loaded it once, and maybe every 5 years you upgraded it. You know, what we did at Salesforce was we upgraded every quarter, so that whatever your app was got better and better and better. You know, there is very little development in an ecosystem around Amazon Web Services. You know, it's not open source, it's not open community, you know, and so you really don't find a huge amount of development supporting their platform, right? The difference between what we're doing and what many others are doing is essentially creating an open source environment where people can create apps. And I mean, look, we gotta kind of, I mean, if you look at the face of video, there has not been a lot of innovation that's gone on. I mean, YouTube was an innovation, but it's not, you know, apart from that, we haven't seen a huge amount of innovation. And really, you know, Facebook, Google, and Amazon, you pretty much control all the video on the internet, right? I mean, Google has a service that competes with AWS. You know, Facebook obviously is a huge provider of video, and Twitter. So you've got massive amounts of consolidation, and whenever you have a lot of consolidation like that, you don't get a lot of new innovation. So I think by building a platform that's open source, that engages a community, I think we can start to see new kinds of applications that emerge, and we can start seeing real innovation start to happen around video. And that, you know, I mean, we see it because, you know, we've built an amazing VR cloud. So that's itself highly, you know, highly disruptive. I mean, that we're turning video into reality. And what we're building is simply running on top of the VideoCoin network, the infrastructure that ultimately becomes generalized that everybody is able to use.
Understand. And then I guess in terms of strategic partnerships are a big deal right now for you in 2019. Do you have any hints on sort of who those partners are?
Yeah, so I mean, we started off, you know, working with, you know, obviously 3 very large companies, Paramount, 20th Century Fox, and DirecTV. I mean, we're in conversations with a whole bunch of other media companies, and I would expect, you know, over the next year, we'll be announcing partnerships. We'll probably end up having some interesting partnerships that are not with media companies, but are still relevant and helpful to get us into markets, as well as working with enterprise development firms to help us to essentially have a trained core that can go out and do integrations inside of these businesses to essentially help help these corporations adopt and integrate VideoCoin into their environment. I'd make one, you know, I bring your attention to one thing, which is, I think, fairly unique about us. We have a class of miners called relay miners, and those miners connect into Amazon and connect into Google, and they allow these companies to keep their existing data and video on Amazon and Google, but put all their new data on our network. So we embrace what they have, and then we extend it, you know, in a much hopefully more innovative and more cost-effective environment. But I think this is going to make it much easier to get adoption by not trying to get them to wholesale switch out the way they've been doing business for, you know, 10 years.
Totally. Any plans to move past video, like music or, you know, machine learning or things like that?
I think right now we're focused on this use case. I mean, I think, you know, we'll end up building You know, I mean, these coins are very complex. I mean, I think um, we'll build a token system that's capable of paying for the use of hardware, period. But our use case will be focused on video. Now, that won't stop us at some later date from being able to extend the same basic operation. We have, you know, proof of encoding, proof of storage, but we could have other proofs too. And so, you know, the most important thing is to do your first thing really well, but I don't think there's anything to stop us in time from moving into closely related categories.
So you, I think VideoCoin has received approval to list on Bitfinex and Ethfinex. Any hint when those listings might go live?
Yeah, I mean, we've got actually approvals from multiple exchanges. You know, the thing about this industry, you know, when I wrote my business plan for Uphold, which was about, you know, being able to buy crypto, but also being able to move into 15 fiat currencies when, you know, to escape volatility. You know, my business plan showed that, I think it was 2012, Bitcoin went from $279 to $79 in a 6-month period. And so, you know, I tell people in this market, you know, if you want to jump in and get rich in a year, you know, you could find yourself in real trouble because of the volatility. If you have a 3-year time horizon, everybody with a 3-year time horizon is done just great, you know. So I think, you know, where you enter is incredibly important. And I think we want to see, you know, I think there was sort of a shock to the system. It ran up so high. I think people thought it would go to the moon. Now it's come back. It's still at a very respectable level. I think we want to see, a little more optimism come back into the market. I mean, look, this stuff is real. It's going to be big. The industry's going to, but you know, there are a lot of people who are panicking. They haven't been in the industry for a long time. You know, I've had people going, oh, well, utility tokens don't work. You know, it's like, so you know, people calm down, and then new things happen, and then all of a sudden it's back on again. And I think we want to, you know, I think our project is a really good one. It's a huge market. We're going to do great. And I think we just want to make sure that we time our entry into the market so that, you know, we give our ecosystem the best chance of being successful.
Understand. And I guess there are some people who obviously got into the pre-sale or airdrop. Are there any sort of signs of when you guys will distribute the tokens? Yeah,
so you know, I think it's a very dangerous thing to distribute your tokens when you don't have exchanges, right? Because the problem, you know, the value of anything is tied to its liquidity, right? So if I give you $100, but I say you can't spend it for 5 years, you know, it's worth a lot less than $100, right? So if we distribute our tokens, but we haven't put in place the exchanges, then by definition, we're creating something that is less valuable than our tokens with exchanges. So I think, you know, we've got exchange relationships, and I think when the moment is right, we'll distribute the tokens and turn on the exchanges. So, you know, I don't think we will do distribution prior to turning on and operating the exchanges.
Understand. I guess in terms of securing the network itself that's constructed, are you guys sort of, how will you actually go about doing that? Is that sort of mining or proof of stake, or maybe could you talk us a bit about how, you know, do you operate a node, or are there opportunities for things like that?
Yeah, I mean, look, I would say the, you know, you know, the engineering pieces to my CTO, but what I will say is that, you know, one of the main obstacles that we have to overcome is that nobody wants to click on a video and have to wait 20 minutes for the blockchain to work in order for the video to load. So, you know, one of the things that is crucial to our architecture is staked model. And we expect the participating data centers to stake in order to be able to participate, so that we can create a strong financial incentive for them to operate, with the same level of reliability that you would expect of an Amazon data center. So I would say the staking part is, a lot of people have been talking about staking. Ethereum's been talking about staking. I think staking is going to prove to be incredibly important to a lot of coins, and I'm a little skeptical that Ethereum can create a stake model that sort of works for everyone. We can create a very focused staking model that works for us, and that's I think going to be one of the things that differentiates us. When we launch, we can operate with the same kind of in the same way that Amazon and Google can operate in terms of the performance and the number of transactions we can process.
Cool. And talking about yourself, Halsey, in terms of you actually got involved in 2013. You created the Coinbase competitor Uphold, and which is incredible, by the way. And it's there's a review on Uphold on Finder as well, if anyone wants to check it out. It's a great exchange, lots of fiat pairings as well. How did you get involved in cryptocurrency in the first place?
Uphold solved a very different kind of problem, and it honestly, it was a hard problem then, and it's still a hard problem, and that is, how do you get money out of your bank account and be able to buy cryptocurrency? And I identified Bitcoin's volatility very early on as a problem, and so people don't maybe remember this, but when Coinbase launched, if you sold your Bitcoin, you had to take your money all the way back to the bank. There was no sort of intermediate form of value that you could hold it in. And when we launched, we allowed people with, it was very difficult. We had to buy part of a bank to do it, but we allowed people to connect US, UK, and EU bank accounts and be able to move money. Really hard to do, solve the first level problem, which is how do people get money into this ecosystem? And we launched with 15 fiat currencies, which I don't think people quite understood, but our concept was, instead of taking the money all the way back to your bank, if you live in a world of Swiss francs, move it into Swiss francs, or, if you're in Europe, switch it into euros or dollars. And so we created essentially a sort of tokenized form of fiat value. So I was always, I've run businesses, I've funded businesses, I've been involved in business for 25 years, and it's no secret that the payment systems that are operated by banks, are horrible. I mean, they're horrible, and the way they're horrible is there are so many payments companies, right? And all these payment companies that exist out there exist because banks are very bad at doing payments. And it was, this really simple idea that I could stand across, and it's what I tell people, it's like, I can sit across the table and I can send somebody Bitcoin. I can pay off a debt standing there, which I cannot do with dollars. And this sort of instantaneous nature where, I point out to people say their money is in the bank. I mean, think about that, right? You don't have your money. It's in the bank, right? And so getting this concept from, that people actually controlled their money was, I thought an incredibly, it's a sea change in the way people should think about their money. So, I've been a part of, so Google Voice and the Voice era and Salesforce and cloud and, CNET, we, built a NASDAQ 100 content company. And, so I've seen, a lot of these different, sort of technology movements come. And, at a very high level, what I recognize about crypto is when I started CNET on the internet, we were breaking open databases. Yahoo was doing it, I was doing it, I was doing review databases. And these trivial things like allowing people to find out what the weather is like in the city, in another city when you're traveling, which today seems absolutely absurdly, stupidly easy, was impossible in 1993, 94, and 95. And so, being able to get that kind of information was really sort of profound. But there was no business model. Like, everybody, back in the .com days, you'd have a meeting and you go, you couldn't tell who was paying who, when you left the meeting, right? And so what crypto does is it does two things in one. It provides a pathway to exchange information and a pathway to exchange value at the same time. And, I don't know what businesses people are going to create, but that's a revolutionary idea. And it's that fundamental idea that, made me want to start, a company in the early phase of the internet that helped people get into the ecosystem. And then now, to be able to take advantage of the capabilities that the blockchain legitimately provide.
Makes sense. What do you think the biggest issue to adoption in cryptocurrency is right now?
Well, it hasn't done a very good job of disrupting traditional payments. I think now that there's a focus on stable coins, I think we're going to see that. I think that's what was really necessary, because honestly, and I said this to people all along, the world just can't operate with volatile value. If companies in the U.S. need dollars to operate, and in the EU they need euros, and so do all the people who live in those places, right? Because their rents in dollars, et cetera. So I think stablecoins is a big step. It's something that we started doing and uphold, back in 2013. So I think that's going to kind of go after a set of problems that everybody talked about, but nothing really ever happened. I think that, it's very interesting because we talked to a lot of people, when we were doing our ICO, which was never public, it was just it was always private. And so we talked to a lot of sophisticated investors, and they believed in they believed in the utility model. And then I had a whole bunch of people like, 1 month ago saying, well, we don't know the utility model works, And so I think people have to just see a couple of these things happen. And, it took a little while on the internet for, it seemed that we were very unique. I made $1.5 billion, up until 2000. And that's why we and Yahoo was also very profitable. We're the only NASDAQ 100 CNET internet companies, but there were thousands upon thousands of companies that didn't do anything, right? And I would also point out during that period, big businesses were baffled by the internet. Utterly baffled. And I think we haven't seen on the enterprise side, I don't think we've seen a lot of success either. And I think, there's less innovation over there. They're slower. There are a bunch of reasons not to change processes because it changes people's jobs. So I think, I've been saying 2019 is the year of the enterprise, and I think we're going to start to see enterprise business use cases that start to emerge. So, it's just this always happens. There's all this enthusiasm, and when the enthusiasm goes away, all the hard work starts. And it is that hard work and those successes that bring it back. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen this scenario. I'll give you one example. So in 2002, the world declared the death of internet advertising. Everybody wrote everywhere that internet advertising doesn't work. So I had Business Week call me up. It's a big magazine here in the United States, business magazine, and they had never built a website, so they missed the whole thing. So I was building Salesforce then. I had left CNET, and they said, just like this. They said, "Well, Halsey, now that we know internet advertising doesn't work, what does that mean for all the media companies?" And I said, "Well, if that's true, it is not a big problem for the media companies. it's a big problem for marketers, because if the internet becomes a black box that nobody gets to see people and influence, then people are going to disappear into a venue where they can't be marketed to. So the problem has to get solved one way or another, right? Because people can't just disappear into this hole and have it be a good thing for marketers. As that was going on, Google was building the pay-per-click model, right? And I mean, literally at the moment that everybody said internet advertising doesn't work, the most profound form of advertising that's ever been created was actually being created. And so, people just, there's an emotional element to all of these new technologies, and like figuring out how to kind of be chill through it is a really, really good skill set.
Understand. I think we've got a question, Joel. Do we have a question? We've got an audience question. I'll read it out to you, Halsey. It says, question is, can't wait to see dApps such as LifePlanet and other VR solutions to be built on this. I hear there is a testnet preview on the way. Did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, so November 8th is our first testnet demo, and we'll be using the network to stream video. I mean, I think it may even be 4K video. So yeah, I mean, it's the first outward demonstration of the progress that we've made, and we have an amazing team. I mean, we have an amazing team of people. And I mean, look, we're not only going after a big market. I mean, this is the only thing Amazon does they make money at. They make a lot of it. They use that money to go kill retailers and media companies. So, it's a use case we totally understand. It's, all of the consumers of Amazon Web Services want to switch. And, you don't need to be a genius that figures out, if you've truly got all of these servers that are underutilized, which exist, type in, zombie computers, then you've got a huge amount of capital that's being deployed, it's not being used, and we can tap into that. And these things are hard to build, but they're all buildable. And it's in our case alone, I mean, you're talking about billions and billions of dollars shifting just with one application, us.
Also, I want to wrap up. I've got two more questions. Oh, sorry, we have another question that has literally just come in as well, Halsey. Joel, if you want to prepare that, I'll read it out to you. Can you talk about the design of the economic incentives that would actually make the token accrue in value? That is the question. Did you want to repeat that, Halsey?
To make the token accrue in value.
The design of the economic incentives that would actually make the token accrue in value.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what they mean by that. I mean, obviously, the more successful we are, the bigger the ecosystem. I mean, the way I look at these things, when everybody looks back and they say, what's the value of these things? It's Metcalfe's law. The bigger the network, the more valuable the network becomes, right? So if your network is 2.1 billion people who are using, a token to be able to operate, that system, it's more valuable than an ecosystem that has 4 participants in it, right? So, I mean, we see this with Facebook and Twitter, and we see the way they're valued. So I mean, the way to accrue value is to bring on, is to increase the number of servers and data centers that are participating in our network, and increase on the demand side the number of media companies that are that are using it. I mean, you can kind of think of it this way: like, what's the value of all of the gas that's being held right now economically in exchanges, right? I mean, that's a number. How much? Because they're all being traded, and we'll be doing the same thing with hardware. There'll be some amount of hardware that will be economically contributed to the network, and that really begins to define the value of the ecosystem. So I'm not sure outside of of executing on the promises that we've made, people are looking for. I think it's really, execution, putting the right partnerships in place over time. But I think, making our application work for, our customers, and effectively building a better video infrastructure for the world, I think is the single best way that we can make the ecosystem and participants more valuable.
Awesome. You're obviously very passionate about disruptive technologies. You took publishing digital with CNET. You had 5 TV shows at the time as well, which is incredible. I just wanted to ask, would you say, how do you find these disruptive technologies? How do you attracted to them and latch on to them? I think we lost Halsey.
I mean, it's interesting, it's like, I built probably one of the first intranets in the world in 1989 at Merrill Lynch. And then I teamed up with Jeff Bezos to start a customized newspaper and an email service, which was a big thing in the early 90s. I kind of followed my passion to CNET. I love technology and, the ability to build a global organization that was covering it. And, that became a $500 million a year business in content, right? I mean, and when I left, we were a top 10 website in the world, really focused around technology. We did everything from, being able to buy products to download, software. But, I stay very close and I'm always trying to learn and think and, I left CNET in February of 2000 because Salesforce launched in January of 2000, and I was the second largest shareholder, and spent 4.5 years kind of building that. And then I created Google Voice, and that was created kind of for me because I was moving back and forth between 2 cities and had multiple cell phones and cars, and I needed to be able to, reach me. And honestly, I mean, it's kind of weird, but I can remember, so ended up starting OpenDNS, which was bought by Cisco for $640 million several years ago, which is the leading DNS provider. And it's one of these weird things. I remember I was looking at the Eiffel Tower and somehow I had this idea that, all of the DNS servers that were being run around the world were all run by the former hippies that, had been replaced in the internet by all these companies, but all these DNS servers were still being run by the same basic system. How I made that connection, I don't know. But I mean, I think about these things, and I think I'm pretty good at understanding the architecture of computing. I think I'm pretty good at. I think probably what I'm best at is understanding what computers can and cannot do, and then being able to apply them in the context of whatever the current problems are. So I see something like Bitcoin comes along, and I'm like thinking, like, what can it do? What can it do? What can it do? And with Bitcoin, I'm like, well, it doesn't matter what it can do because no one can buy it. so I mean that became a really obvious, that became a really obvious thing because I couldn't buy it, So
do you have like a particular philosophy when it comes to these problems? So I
have a very strong philosophy. My philosophy is you have to build a great product or don't even bother. And you have to hire great people or don't start the company. So it's really those.
So what was that? You have to hire great people to what?
You have to hire amazing people. I mean, you can't, not good people, like amazing people, right? And I tend to find those people who are amazing. I find them because they have side projects they're doing that they're passionate about. So they're literally doing what I want them to do already and not being paid. They're like, you find them on the internet. I mean, we have one of our engineers who's extraordinary, who got his PhD in computer science and electrical engineering. And he also wrote, while he was doing that, 22 apps for the iPhone, and they were the most sophisticated image processing apps. I mean, you couldn't, we pay him well, but I think if we didn't pay him, he would still be doing this stuff because it's, he's so passionate about it. So it's really trying to find people whose passions align and really kind of driving the company, don't settle, and really trying to, create a product that's easy to adopt and delivers value, relatively quickly. I mean, at Salesforce, we followed the 20/80 rule. To make it easy, we wanted 20% of the features that was 80% of the value at 1/10 the cost. And, now it's a $110 billion company. So sometimes really simple ideas for how you start things end up leading to really big successes.
Awesome. I was going to ask, are there any other industries that you look at that are really ripe for disruption as well, that you're passionate about?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still passionate about the problems that I saw when I entered the industry, which is really the fact that payments are horrible. I mean, you literally started this thing off with a truism by Ripple, which is, and unfortunately they haven't been able to solve it yet. But look, I mean, what we're talking about is money, and money should be able to radically improve the terrible money system we have right now. Banks are good at holding money. They do that well. I think they're probably good at lending money, but they have no real economic incentive to make moving money, easy. And that's why we have PayPal and, Klarna and a million other companies. So there was a lot of talk early on about creating a more equitable system, where people who are disenfranchised, who paid more, could have access to it. I think those same things, the things that got me interested in the beginning are the things that I'm still, really interested in seeing. Those are the problems I'd love to see solved.
Halsey, last question. You obviously were very much involved with the dot-com period, and you've made some correlations between that and, for example, with people calling internet advertising is dead. I think I've heard search engine marketing is dead for I don't know how long now, but it seems to somehow still keep going on. What would you say are some parallels, or where would you think we're at with the blockchain cryptocurrency space, particularly cryptocurrency space right now, and the parallel of the dot-com era? What sort of things are you sort of seeing there?
So you have to keep in mind that everything that's happened in crypto has been without enriching the investment banks and banks. So if you want to look at like who really made a lot of money in the dot-com era, it was investment banks, banks who were holding the money, the whole apparatus of the financial system was totally organized around mostly pushing crappy dot-com companies into the market, getting liquidity for the VCs who go roll it back into more. And there were a lot of companies that just, that truly perished, that started during the 90s and just, died off between 2000 and 2002. So we haven't really, in this industry, we really haven't co-opted, these, I mean, now Goldman's kind of weighing in, and he said something about,
Backed.
I can't remember. Yeah. So we haven't seen these guys come in, and I think when these guys are going to come in, it's going to be like jet fuel on the industry. My personal feeling is that the way I think this is going to work is I think it's going to have these volatile swings, and we had one big one with the NASDAQ crash, and I think we're just going to have these, right? I think it's going to be it's just going to be periodic, right? And I think for some period of time, I think people are just going to have to, and it may be the nature of the way the world is today. I mean, everything happens so fast, right? Information travels so fast. People's minds can be twisted from believing one thing to believing something else in a nanosecond with social media. So it's kind of like, the boat, constantly rocking one way, or everyone falls to the left and to the right and to the left and right. So I think volatility, and it goes without saying, is just the way it's going to be, except for stable coins, which we do not want to be volatile. That's a bad thing. So I think, I looked at the NASDAQ and its trajectory, and then I looked at what happened recently, and 6 years was condensed down to about 12 months, So, but look, here's the most important thing about .com. People were right. Like, people who put money in, they were right. It was big. It's created the biggest companies the world has ever seen. It's transformed existing companies. Every dollar that was spent in the .com, whether they lost it or not, it was spent in service of something that was truly great. And so, I would never argue for less money to have gone in the .com era, because it created, all ideas were tried, and the good ones kind of emerged, out of that. And quite frankly, a lot of ideas that were tried back then were later, became successful, later on, the same idea. So, I just think this is much more of a kind of buckle it up kind of thing, because you're going to see this periodically. We have seen it periodically. I mean, this is, I can say this as a historian, not as a futurist. The people who just were shell shocked from the internet and didn't invest from 2000 to 2002, they really kind of missed out, because there were a lot of good companies that were sort of started in the era when people thought the internet doesn't work and it's all a hoax. With these wild swings, the best thing that people can do is to try to be, to avoid that, see through the fog that's always created by the fact. I mean, look, this is money. People lose it and they gain it really quickly. It's a very emotional thing for people. But I mean, the best thing is build things you dream, hire good people to do it, build a great product, believe in the industry. Typically most businesses don't come out and they're a blockbuster. They have to build and toil and whatever, usually it's after 6 months, you don't go, you got to spend 3 years and 4 years doing it. But I think for this industry, for people who are serious about it and they're diligent and they work hard and, they just fundamentally believe in the idea, they're going to do really well. And we're going to look back on this, 15 years from now, and we're going to realize just how profound this, I mean, there may be many of these companies that just are totally wiped out, but I think we're going to look back and we're going to see this is a really profound moment, not only in technology, but in human history.
100%. Just, I guess, recently we've seen a massive consolidation of web services to Google, Amazon, and Facebook. Are you concerned about that centralization?
Yeah, I mean, look, I have two thoughts. I mean, one, innovation is really kind of dead. All those companies just innovate by buying companies. I mean, look at Facebook, Twitter. I mean, all of their big networks they bought outside of Facebook. So I do think it has reduced a little bit of the innovation. But I will say this: just when everybody thinks that a bunch of companies control the world, new companies come along and prove them wrong. Microsoft did it to IBM. Google did it to, and others did it to Microsoft. I think these companies that are big and centralized, I think we're going to see a lot of, I think in the next 5 years, I think we're going to spawn a whole bunch of companies that will be every bit as big as those companies. I don't know if they'll be fully decentralized or whether that's part of it. I mean, for me, decentralization is the new computing architecture. And, I can speak for ourselves, and I think we'll have, we'll take a big chunk, in 5 years, we will have taken a big chunk out of Amazon's web services business.
Because I guess In what ways do you think VideoCoin is going to be better than AWS?
Well, I mean, let me give you an example. So sometimes when you lower the price, you let people actually do new things. So sometimes lowering price is almost like creating a new application, because that's exactly what happens. So let's take 20th Century Fox. So Hanno Basse, who's an advisor, who's the CTO of 20th Century Fox, said, you know, if we could reduce the cost of our video in the cloud, we put all of our sports content up. And if we put all of our sports content up, then we could start creating like the history of a team or the history of a player, right? They'd have all of that information and they could start striping it and turning it into a new product. But when the cost is too high, you can't do that, right? So just the reduction of price creates new things, right? Because it makes new things possible that weren't possible before. But I think lowering the cost is going to allow things that, you know, are too expensive now to be created, and I think those things can be very meaningful. I think the architecture of open source, which is what we are, it draws a whole different kind of developer than people building on Amazon Web Services. I mean, it's not really very exciting to build for a closed system. An open system, you know, is traditionally has attracted large numbers of developers and large amounts of innovation. I mean, that's what the internet was, right? I mean, it was a decentralized system, and look what happened, right? So I think, you know, the simple and easy answer that we have for everybody is we're going to reduce your cost. But I think, and the other things, they're not going to see immediately. But I think once the ecosystem gets going and people start putting stuff up, I think we're going to see completely new products. We're going to see new metaphors for video. And I mean, we've got to remember, I mean, you know, we have built the world's best VR system. VR is a complete transformation of video into our reality. And whether people think it's going to happen this year, next year, or 5 years, it's going to happen. And, you know, our technology is amazing. And you know, so really the first app on the VideoCoin network is ours, launching in early December. And, you know, it's one of those things that I think is going to, you know, it's a brand new medium built on, you know, built on the creaky legs of video. So yeah, I mean, I think video is just so primed for real innovation, not just switching from DirecTV to your iPad, but I think more fundamental rethinking of the medium itself.
That's awesome. Absolutely. I love your visionariness, Halsey. It's incredible.
I try.
If you do, that's great. We have a question we ask all guests, and that is, what do you think the price of Bitcoin? It's going to be midnight, end of December 2018, 31st of December. What is your prediction of the price, do you think, in US dollars? It's not fun. This is not financial advice. You will not be held to this.
Definitely not financial advice. You know, I mean, my belief is that it's kind of bottomed out, and that it's going to start clawing its way back. So, you know, it would be somewhere between where it is today and 7,500. I mean, you know, how fast it claws itself back. But I think we've had the big, you know, the volcano's blown up, the lava's all over the place. People are going to start moving back into their homes, and, you know, and the cycle will begin anew.
People are going to start moving back into their homes. That's awesome. That's probably the best analogy I've heard in quite a few videos now that we have done here. All right, thank you so much, Halsey, for joining us. You can follow Halsey as well on VideoCoin Project at VideoCoin HQ on Twitter, and do look out for the new testnet. And thank you again for incredible vision. And I think everyone's enjoyed this question and an interview, and thank you so much for what you're bringing to the cryptocurrency space as well.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. It's been fun.
See you, Halsey.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All right, guys, moving on. We are talking about the 10th birthday of Bitcoin. Yes, we are. It is the 10th birthday of when the white paper came out. Joel, we've got a little screenshot here. A peer-to-peer electronic cash system. That was what it was titled. And we, obviously the white paper was sent to a small group of people comprised of cryptographers, crypto-anarchists, economic libertarians, and programmers who were part of the obscure metsdowned.com mailing list, which is quite incredible. The white paper was heralded as a technical success. It was the first of its kind, I guess, to solve the double spend problem, and which has obviously long been a major issue when it comes to electronic cash. Obviously, digital money is quite incredible, and it's obviously seen a couple of use cases, potentially some nefarious cases, but obviously, like we were talking about with Halsey, I guess many people were experiencing these problems when it comes to transferring money overseas, and I think this is really one of those moments in time when this was changed. We've got the Genesis block here. I don't know, Joel, if you've got that. The first block of Bitcoin, known as the Genesis block, was mined after the release of the white paper on January 3rd, 2009. 2009. Wow. That's a long time ago. I remember starting Finder in around July 2009. Or was it September? Sorry, September 2009. It was a long time ago. In the immediate years that followed the release of the blockchain and white paper, Bitcoin continues a relative niche concept favored by all sorts of libertarian groups. Obviously, it's seen as a way to store value and control central authorities, and obviously have control outside of central authorities like governments, banks. In the Genesis block, obviously, is a reference to the front page of the British paper The Times, which said, "The Times, 3rd of January 2009, Chancellor on brink of second bailout for banks." So, obviously pointing a big shining light at the banks and the current way money is exchanged and value is stored with quantitative easing and all sorts of things like that. Obviously, this quote's been interpreted a number of different ways over time. But clearly, fractional reserve banking and the failure of the financial system in this regards is probably a strong read on what Satoshi was anticipating and talking about. Obviously, some people believe that potentially Satoshi, who has never been figured out who he is or who he or she is, that is, could be British, given that they chose a British newspaper. And obviously, Satoshi chose quotes from P2P in a link below. Following the Genesis block, continued to promote and develop the Bitcoin for 2 more years before disappearing from the internet in 2010. I guess a quote from the end of a Satoshi post on the P2P Foundation forum. "The result is a distributed system with no single point of failure. Users hold the crypto keys to their own money and transact directly with each other with the help of the P2P network to check for double spending." Isn't that incredible? 10 years. 10 years it is today. Having greater control of your funds obviously is the major thing, and transferring continues to ring true, obviously, for crypto enthusiasts today, and it is still going, still working, which is obviously, and that stored inherent value in cryptocurrency probably won't change over time. Guys, do check in on the final prices. The market's kind of moving just a little bit sideways. It's quiet out there, real quiet. Bitcoin trading at $6,297, Ethereum at $195, Bitcoin Cash $421, Litecoin at $49, EOS $515, Binance Coin at $9.43. Interestingly, Tether is almost back at parity. Almost back at parity at 99.18 US cents. Bitcoin is trading, obviously, given that different places have Tether versus US dollars. Trading on Coinbase Pro at $6,265. So slight premium still for the Tether. All right, guys, do subscribe and do follow us and do see for more, obviously, interviews and things like that. And I appreciate everyone and all the questions you've sent in today. So we'll see you guys tomorrow for the Daily Exchange. Yeah!